JoJo Siwa is on ultimate damage control mode as more information comes out about her bizarre adventure.
By the, 16 times somebody asks you, are you happy? Do you want to end things? You're gonna just spew your guts. And I was honest and I said, if you ask me tomorrow, I don't know my answer. If you ask me right now, my answer is yes.
I genuinely thought that my last video would cover all the bases needed here, but I had no idea just how much more there was to this story than we've already covered. But before that, I want to address this comment. This commenter seems to be very annoyed that I don't make enough videos on black and brown people, which is certainly an interesting critique. So subscribe to the channel if you want more videos on black people. Without doubt, one of the dumbest comments I've ever received on this channel so far. It'll be a while until someone tops this one, that's for sure. But, on a real, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about this. So without doubt, the most noteworthy update since my last video on this situation is the Vile Files podcast, among some others, because she's gone on like a big press tour, as is standard for celebrities when they finish big reality TV shows. However, I'm sure whoever is behind JoJo Siwa's PR team in this whole fiasco realized how bad it would look if they just ignored the very obvious glaring issues that a lot of people had with her involvement in the show, which is why even though I would assume that JoJo Siwa and her team would rather talk about anything other than the Chris and Kath situation, it's like the main portion of what they talk about in all these press tours and everything that JoJo Siwa is doing from this point onwards. Well, at least in the immediate aftermath of the Big Brother sort of ending. Because you know how celebrities sometimes go into podcasts with a long list of things, maybe from their manager or even them themselves, of topics that the podcaster is prohibited from bringing up under any circumstances, which is why sometimes when you watch a podcast, there are weird cuts every now and then. Every now and then the podcaster gets some flack for not asking questions that people really want to know, and that's usually because they've been told you're not allowed to ask these questions. Because let's be real, a lot of celebrities know exactly what people want to know about them, and the reason that we don't know is because they don't want us to. And they're not about to break that sanctity of silence because of some random ass podcaster that they realistically don't really give a shit about. But like I said, in a case like this, they'd realize that it would look really bloody bad if they just ignored it because it'd be very obvious what they were doing. So a large portion of these podcasts is in fact dedicated to the Chris and Kath situation, which is what we will mainly be focusing on.
Should we talk about Chris?
I would love to talk about Chris.
All right. Where does he fall on the Tyler, me?
Yeah.
I don't think that she does love to talk about Chris. Honestly, right, even if she did have like a great relationship with Chris and everything we saw was real and they were in a really happy, lifelong relationship now and they truly loved each other, like, equally, I still think that she wouldn't like to talk about Chris to the extent that she is being forced to, because it must get fucking boring at a point. This is the one thing, or, well, there's a few things, but this is like the main thing that I don't envy celebrities on, especially actors, when they finish a big gig and they go to like a meetup or whatever and there's a lot of press there and there's a bunch of people, like a bunch of TikTokers especially, with like their phone 1 foot away from their fucking face. Like these people, because they don't have microphones a lot of the time, will literally just hold their phone so close to an actor's face that if they stuck their tongue out, they'd probably catch malaria from the fucking phone screen, and they're getting asked the same questions in the same manner, and they have to give the same responses every bastard time for like hours and days on end. I really don't envy it. That shit must suck. Like, there's not even a joke here or a backhanded compliment or a lead up for anything. I'm just genuinely like, I feel bad for those people, man. Mandatory press as a huge public figure must be one of the most soul-destroying things they could go through.
Did you know that Chris was came from Love Island UK? When you
I knew he was on Love Island UK because my brother's fiance was a big fan of the show and gave me a heads up on him. And I knew of him. I never watched the series though. Someone in my life told me about his viral sound, sit down, I'm sat. I did use that against him once in the house, but I actually didn't know it because he said to me, like, he was like, take a seat. And I was like, I'm sat. And I did not, like, I wasn't consciously doing it. But it was a really funny moment because he was like, did you just use my line against me? And I was like, on accident. Really on accident, I did.
I know that sound. I'm pretty sure we all know that sound. I didn't know it was Chris Hughes that was like the originator of that sound. I'm sure that was never the intention. I'm sure none of you knew that was Chris Hughes either. Maybe like, I'll give it a gander, maybe 20% of you knew that it was Chris Hughes. But even then, that's being generous. I've never actually seen the original of that clip. Let's give it a watch.
I'm done with the conversation now.
Sit back down.
I'm sad.
This here might be the most shocking thing that I've seen about Chris in the past couple of days, because the original audio makes it sound as though the lassie that he's talking to stood up and then sat back down, bowed to his will, because he was just so irresistible and sexy. And when he tells you to do something, you must listen to daddy. When in reality, she never even fucking stood up to begin with. So Chris was telling someone to sit down who was already sat down. I bet in his mind he got like some sick power play from that. Oh, look at you sitting down because I told you to. And it's like, well, no, I'm sat down because I was already sat. I'm not gonna. Why would I stand up? Why are you saying sit back down when I haven't stood up? This is Chris's magnum opus. When Chris Hughes dies, this will be the thing that he's most remembered for. This fucking bastard clip. I am being harsh. I understand that, but like, it's just funny that this is the thing that Chris will be most remembered for in a few years' time, and no one even knows that it was him that was behind it.
I mean, was it the confrontation with Mickey and him standing up for you that first like drew you to him as someone that like, hey, this is the person being a friend in this moment to me, and then you kind of leaned in?
It's interesting. I feel like everything in your life happens for a reason, and Mickey doing that definitely kickstarted, Chris and I's friendship. And I don't know, I think, by luck, Chris was there. I don't know what it would have looked like if anybody else was there in that moment, what anybody else would have said, but it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to. And then I think that moment outside, what I really needed was a hug. You know what I mean? But it's day one. You can't ask for a hug from anybody. Also, like, in my head, I'm like, it's day one, don't cry. Grow up. You know what I mean? And so Chris could see that on my face, and he could see that I wasn't okay, and we didn't know each other, and it was a moment, and it felt very safe and very comforting. And then when he swapped me beds, that meant a lot as well, because I was like, this feels nice, you know what I mean? Like, it felt very protective, and like I actually put trust into him, being like, actually he would pop him if he got up, and I felt that.
So all that, what JoJo's saying there, I think is actually very true, authentic, vulnerable, and I appreciate hearing it, because every now and then in a situation where there's so much lies and deception, hearing a little bit of honesty goes a long way. And I do think that she wanted a hug. I do think that she felt comfortable with Chris sleeping closer to her than Mickey. I mean, that much is pretty much a fucking given. What I don't believe, and where the discrepancy comes in, I guess, and you might be able to call this presumptuous, so be sure to let me know if you disagree with me in the comments, but I think that this was all a part of Chris's ploy, like part of his plan. I don't think that he was genuinely trying to look out for JoJo Siwa, at least to the extent that he was trying to make out. I think a lot of it was, like, this really could be considered a stretch if you don't agree with me, but I think it was all manipulation on Chris's part. I really am open to being disagreed with here, but like, this is, because the only reason I say this is because he was in the house, it was, I love you, you're the best girl I've ever met in my entire, you are the sweetest, most authentic, genuine individual ever, whilst JoJo Siwa was going through something tumultuous, she was about to cry, and those words are very obviously, to me, words that are trying to goad a reaction out of her. You're trying to make her cry more, because you're being just so nice and honorable, and then when she starts going like, oh, don't make me cry more, he goes, no, but that is, I'm describing you. You are the sweetest, most genuine, incredible, amazing, lovely girl, and I love you, and we love you, and you're gonna fucking take over the world! When you say shit like that to a girl that you met 5 days ago, I don't think it's not a stretch. It's textbook love bombing. Textbook. And when you turn to the next page of that textbook, what do love bombers usually do? They disengage. And what happened the second they left the Big Brother house? It went from, I love you, you're the best girl, you're so sexy, lick the chocolate, imaginary semen off of my fucking shorts. It went from that to, we're just friends. And honestly, you guys are fucking idiots. You are so silly and inappropriate for thinking that we could be anything more than friends. Like, come on, guys, can we just get real for a second here? Trying to, like, gaslight us into thinking that we're the silly ones for thinking that there wasn't something going on there, when Chris was clearly, by the way, trying to do some shit. Being flirty as fuck. I don't know what to tell you, man. That sort of behavior really does just give me bad vibes. And you can disagree with me if you want. Because the love bombing worked. Like, JoJo clearly likes Chris more than Chris likes her. I think that much is, once again, clear as fuck. Chris either is very indifferent towards JoJo or just straight up doesn't give a shit about her. And I think any communication from his end towards JoJo from now is purely just a manipulation tactic or something to stay in the limelight or use for relevancy. Either that or he just won't do it because he knows it might be bad PR because of how people have seen it, which he might not have expected. He was probably thinking, oh, I stood up for her during this like homophobic, everyone's gonna love me. Everyone is going to adore me because I stood up for her, when no, everyone hates you. But they hate JoJo as well, and they hate Mickey. All three of you are knobs. And then when you add to the equation that Chris is a whole 12 years older than this 21-year-old girl, that just makes the whole thing even worse. I genuinely cannot believe that I just fucking let a gal slip out on camera, by the way. That's my old Northwest London roots kicking in. I was talking to some old friends from earlier. I think that might have spun me a bit.
And he essentially was saying that, like, something that's very similar to what I feel in life, which is, I feel like I'm always on, and I love being on, and I love having energy, and I love, making others feel good, and I love being silly, and I love having fun, but I also love recharging. And here in this environment, there is no recharge station. You're always going, and I just feel very drained right now, and I feel like sad for a second. And I didn't want to make it about me in that moment at all, so I kept it on him, but I was like, damn, I feel that exact same thing, but I've never been able to formulate it. And so that was a moment that I really realized, like, oh, we're similar, you know what I mean? And then that was a moment when I realized, like, oh, I understand him very well. And then for me, he was there for me in my lowest lows in the house, always. I was having loads of realizations in the house that I didn't want to speak about, but you could see it in my energy and you could see it in my tone and my body language. And he was there for me throughout all that without talking through it. And same for him. And then our highest of highs came from each other as well. So it was a perfect recipe to make a best friend.
Now, just to be clear, because this does sound very genuine and real, I don't think, I mean, it would be very difficult for me to believe that every single conversation was a pre-planned form of manipulation from Chris Hughes. I'm sure that there was some genuine stuff thrown in there, in the same way that two people who fucking hate each other can have, like, a real genuine conversation between each other if they're two adults who can function properly. I'm sure there were genuine moments where they made each other laugh or made each other emotional. I'm sure that existed, but all that really did, all those moments of, like, actual honesty and genuine friendship cause, I think all that did was make it way easier for the fake sort of manipulation, artificial bullshit, emotional bollocks. I think it just made that so much more believable for JoJo. Because I think we have to remember, JoJo Siwa is someone who has been void of developing relationships in a normal manner since she was like 7 years old, right? Since she was born, she was basically put into these pageantries. She was made a star so young. And when you're that famous, having normal friendships is pretty much impossible because you never know what the motives are of the people who want to be in your life. So it doesn't surprise me that JoJo Siwa might struggle a bit in terms of like trying to develop relationships with people, whether they be friendships or romantic, because her mind is fucked, right? Her brain has just been completely, there's just fucking bullshit thrown at her from every single angle for the last like 15 fucking years. As much as she has undoubtedly acted like a twat in this situation, we need to look at it with a bit of nuance here, and when you do that, there's a lot of sympathy to be had for JoJo, in my opinion.
Were you aware of the conversations that people were having about you and Chris and the speculation
on the outside world?
On the outside world,
not a clue. I mean, you have no clue what's going on in the outside world. I asked the diary room every single day, has Katy Perry made it back from outer space? That's what I cared about. And they're like, JoJo, we cannot tell you outside information. I was like, it's irrelevant.
You blinked and she was back.
Yeah, literally. But I was like, come on, it's irrelevant.
I was very mad at her.
Really?
Yeah,
very.
Why? Not to make it about Katy Perry, but give me the 10-second version.
Because she kind of like made the whole thing about...
Right, enough of that Katy Perry bullshit, a load of bollocks. I do believe that they knew fuck all about what was going on in the outside world, because if they did, they definitely would have changed their behavior up like heavy. They would not have been flirting as much. JoJo Siwa would have separated herself hardcore from Chris Hughes, which is weird because in a reality TV show where everything is so fake, it's strange how that one aspect of not knowing anything about what's going on outside is like the only real thing that happens throughout the whole show. But I guess the reason they do that is because it stirs drama and increases the watching numbers. So they can only fake stuff if it'll add to the drama of it all. You know, they'll only show real situations if it's to the detriment of the people who are on or around the show, because they're good moral people, these Big Brother blokes.
Through no fault of their own, have just been so privileged and so like put on a pedestal for so long, they don't even know how to be normal or how to relate or bring themselves down to a level of a fan, which is again like one of my favorite things about you is it's like I knew who you were when I met you, and I certainly knew like your Instagram followers. I knew you were a big deal.
Go on, hype me up.
In public, it's like you really are world famous, and but you don't. Yeah, that is
you're
so just normal. When I'm with you, you're really normal. Like it's weird when you're driving with your face on a car around. That's not normal. But like the human JoJo Siwa, it's very you know how to be relatable, you know how to be JoJo
I'm
Siwa.
very lucky. I have a good family that keeps me.
I don't know if a lot of people know that about you. I don't know what the public perception of you
honestly,
is.
I think zero prior to doing Big Brother.
I don't think that this is ridiculous to say. I actually think that JoJo Siwa, relative to many other celebrities or people who are similar to her in the industry, I think that she is actually relatively authentic insofar as if you turn the camera off and you turn the camera on, you'll get different people the same way that you'll get a different version of me when the camera's off, but it's not so different that it's like, whoa, who the fuck is this and who the fuck is that? It's like you turn certain aspects of yourself up for sure, you're a bit chattier, a bit more energetic, you know what I mean? But I believe that JoJo Siwa is naturally just a energetic and charismatic person who loves to sing and dance and just be a fucking baller. The one exception to that rule is when she did that whole edgy rebrand though. That was phony as, and you could tell that was phony as fuck. You could tell that was not what JoJo wanted at all. She was not being true to herself, and that's why I think, once again, it's just another bit of, like, evidence that she is very easy to manipulate, both in a friendship sort of sense and a business sort of sense. There was definitely some fucking higher-up who thought, okay, your reputation's a little bit in tatters now because of the XOMG bollocks, so let's do a bit of a rebrand. We're gonna make you edgy, naughty, a bad girl, wearing black, all these fucking outfits and that. And JoJo just sort of went, alright, I guess you know best. You've done a pretty good job so far. And yeah, I mean, we all know how it went. It did not go well for her. When she's performing Karma or like any of those songs, you could tell she enjoys that much. But everything surrounding it, the whole rebrand, the makeup, the look, everything, I just think that was a bunch of bollocks.
I'll just share. I remember looking at my photo. And because everyone was looking at their photo, and you know, Jack had his partner, Chris had his dog, Mickey had his dogs, Chesney had his family. Everyone had their photo, and I had mine as well. And it was a group photo with a load of people in it. But I remember looking at it and just thinking, I wasn't happy this day. And I remembered why I wasn't happy this day. And now I'm here looking at this photo, realizing there is not a single reason that I should not have been happy this day. I'm with my family in Disney World, and it's Christmas. Wow. And that kind of made me honestly not be able to, there's actually a shot, I've seen it online, I don't know if it's in the episode or it was the live stream, but it's on the last or the second to last day, and it's me staring at the photo, and you can just see in my eyes, like, something's wrong. But this realization started on the first day or the second day, maybe the second day. And I just remember looking at the photo and being like, okay, what is this? What is this thought? And then that opened a cage of a few different areas of my life, to be completely fair and completely honest. Like it wasn't just one area of my life, but it just opened a can of worms that then for a few days really did me in.
I think that honestly plays into what I was just saying earlier about the rebrand and how she wasn't being true to herself, and that sort of drunk Disney adventure, if you want to call it that, a bizarre adventure, if you will. I mean, first and most obviously, you don't drink a copious amount like that unless there's something going on. Well, maybe you do. I guess if it's your first time drinking, or maybe you're just a bit irresponsible, you don't know what you're doing exactly, but then there is also the possibility that you are drinking copious amounts to get through something or because you're unhappy, right? That is a possibility, but it might not have been what's happening there. I don't want to psychoanalyze too much. But it was very off-brand, even for the persona that she puts on camera. Like, even her fans were very surprised to see something like that happening. And her saying that she was very unhappy with that representation or the way that she was behaving in that manner, in that place with her family, makes a lot of sense. Because once again, just like the rebrand, she wasn't being true to herself. She wasn't being the authentic version of herself that she usually is being, to more of an extent at least.
Whenever I was occupied or doing something, I was so fine, so happy. Whether that was playing catch with Chris, dancing, in the hot tub, playing pirates, whatever it was, if we were doing something, I was great. I was invested, my feet were there, and I was feeling happy. The second that I had a time to think, and I remember I would just go sit on the bike and I would just think, my brain just started to run with so many things that I have been okay with, I have tolerated that nobody should. And it put a lot of things into perspective for me. And then at the end, those things got validated very quickly. I don't know, it was hard. It was hard to have those realizations and not be able to talk them through with anybody.
So obviously now she's referring to the relationship with Kath more so than anything else. Or at the very least, she's saying that knowing that that is the conclusion that most people will come to about the statement that she is making there. And if she thinks anything other than that, then she is very, very silly and does not understand public perception as much as I thought. But either which way, I'm sure that this is something that a lot of us can relate to. When you're occupied, when you're busy, you're not really thinking of anything but the task at hand, especially if you're neurodivergent. That's just sort of how our brains work. But the second you're left alone, especially at nighttime, which is why a lot of people struggle to sleep, a lot of people with that sort of brain or mental illness struggle to sleep, is because when you're alone with your thoughts, you do think about shit that you're stressed about, or the worries of the future, and crippling anxiety starts to creep in. And then you go to the GP and beg for help and then get denied a billion times because the UK is really fucking stringent about melatonin for some bastard reason. By the way, it's something that we can all relate to an extent. I do find it weird that JoJo Siwa almost is implying here that she never has a moment alone apart from when she was in the Big Brother house, but I also do believe it because she is so big and so famous and so rich. People who are that popular and that affluent and that successful usually don't have a lot of free time, contrary to what a lot of people may believe from the outside, because a lot of people sort of yearn for that type of lifestyle, thinking, I'd have so much free time, but in order to maintain that sort of lifestyle or even make it there in the first place, you sort of have to give up so many hours of free time, days, weeks of free time, so many nights out, so many days out with your pals, so many, pints with your friends. You have to say no to a lot of outings and concerts and showings and events, you know what I mean? Because you're so hell-bent on maintaining this success. Maybe I'm just projecting a little bit, but you know what I mean. All I'm saying is I'm not considering it an impossibility or a lie that the Big Brother house is the first time in a while that she truly has been able to retrospect and actually think properly about the issues in her life.
If I start talking about things like that's going to be something that goes on outside that's out of my control, and I don't want that. I don't want to do that to anybody. But I'm also realizing that I'm in here having these realizations, and I super had to internalize it. And then I think it was actually the best thing for me because I had to formulate my own thoughts for the first time. I didn't have my friends, didn't have my family to help me formulate my thoughts. It was purely me. And that is it's such a weird concept. Because you formulate your thoughts without even knowing it with other people's opinions. Like, you put an outfit on in the morning, okay? And you go, and like, forgive me if this is wrong, but like, you're a girl, so I'm assuming this is gonna be right. You put an outfit on in the morning, you go see Nick, right? You say, good morning, babe. If he gives you a little bit of a different look, are you ever like, it's my outfit, or it's my hair? And you,
I'm like, you think I'm ugly?
yeah, so you hate me.
Yeah.
So you think I'm ugly, you hate me.
You want a divorce.
You're like a divorce. Like, we have split custody of the child. Like, you go there. And it's those little things that like, I had to live without, but then also those big things that I then had to live without. And it was hard. It was difficult, but I think it was the best thing that could have happened for me in there.
Looking at that photo, what did you come to like the conclusion of that? Like, why weren't you happy?
Look, I'll say this. I will say this. Out of respect for another human in the situation, they have asked to not speak about it.
Okay, we're about to get into the shit now, but before that, I just want to say, everything I've just said could be bollocks, right? It's what I believe, but like, if you disagree with me, I understand, because, and this is something that we need to understand heavy here, JoJo Siwa is fucking media trained to fuck. She is very, very actually genuinely good at talking, speaking, being maybe performatively authentic, as much as I think there are aspects to it that are absolutely real, or maybe just played up a little bit from her real personality. There are also aspects of it that are definitely fake, and she is very good at appearing real to people on her podcasts, on her TikToks, even when she's not on her own platform. You turn a camera on, and she also turns on. Like, she is fucking, like, she's on. You have to respect it to an extent, but you also need to be a bit careful, because it is a bit slimy. You know, she's like the Floyd Mayweather of PR training. She just fucking ducks, dives, runs away, clinches. You can't land a solid hit on her. But now she's about to talk about Kath, and here is where I think shit could get pretty interesting, so we'll give it a watch.
Out of respect for another human in the situation, they have asked to not speak about it, for me to not speak about them. And I told them, I said, look, that's going to make me seem like I am avoidant of the situation. I'm not avoidant of the situation. Obviously, a lot of people think that Chris has something to do with it. Chris does not have absolutely anything to do with it. Chris and I are friends. We have a very, very great friendship. It's a very strange, like, you are meant to be in my life. We have a very special bond. It's genuinely unlike any friendship bond I've ever created. But my situations are completely unrelated. And that kind of got misconstrued. And that's hard because, you know, it's kind of feeding a false narrative.
Are we talking about Kath?
Yeah.
To be fair to JoJo, I don't understand the request to keep everything private when you have made a 13-minute video basically bashing this girl for, admittedly, things that are warranted, like things that deserve to be bashed and things that I can understand why you would be so annoyed at. But as much as those issues were warranted, if you're able to make a 13-minute video on JoJo Siwa, she is also entitled to talk about you publicly, in my opinion. Like, you can't just say all that shit, potentially mislead some people or say things there that aren't true. I'm not saying that they did that, but if they were to do that and then just say to JoJo, oh, by the way, you're not allowed to say anything, yeah, then I would understand why that would be very unfair. And if JoJo is hearing things from Kath that she thinks is a bunch of baloney, then she definitely has the right, in my opinion, to speak out about that. And someone made a comment in my last video that was very, very poignant, in my opinion, that I didn't mention, but I really should have. The way that Kath was talking about JoJo as though JoJo was the love of their life, the most amazing girl ever, like someone who would completely change the stratosphere and future of where their life was going, when they're a fully grown person, they're like 27, 28 years old from what I remember, and they've only been together for 3 months at that point. Yeah, it is a little bit childish. It does show some emotional immaturity to speak about someone who is that young as though they're this life-changing, fucking euphoric, sort of sublime individual who has done so much for you when you've only been dating for like 3 months and you're so much older than them. I think that is a little bit dodgy, to be fair. Not dodgy as in like maniacal or mischievous. I just think like emotionally immature is the best way to put it. Now, I do understand that, and this is very true, as much as a lot of people were saying it jokingly, lesbian relationships are so fucking different. Like, you move in first day, the first date is 3 days long. I learned that from my girlfriend who I'm dating now, who is bisexual, but more weighted towards women, like a 9 out of 10 on the lesbian scale. I experienced a typical lesbian date. Our second date was like 3 fucking days long, so I do get it. Obviously, I don't get it to the same extent that actual lesbians do, but I get it a little bit more than most straight men do, in my opinion at least. I think I can say that, that's fair. All I'm saying is, I am opening the door to the possibility that both parties involved in this situation are not completely void of guilt.
They have a right to do, they're in a public relationship,
exactly.
But it's more like, you know, to your point, you know, there was a lot of people making a lot of assumptions and speculations about like your relationship with Chris.
I also just want to say to this point as well, JoJo was the one who made this whole situation public. So Kath absolutely had the right to respond to it publicly in a 13-minute video. That is totally fine. And I don't have a problem with that. As much as I have a problem with some of the things that they were saying, they're a bit overdramatic, a bit melodramatic, I think is a better word. I don't have a problem with the very fact that they made a video in the first place, because the way that JoJo was treating them on live television was undoubtedly very disrespectful. And the speculation that people are having about JoJo and Chris, I've said this so many times, was not unwarranted. We don't try to fucking gaslight us into thinking that we are the ones who don't understand that men and women can't just be friends, because that is not what was being portrayed on that show. Fuck me, man, it was so obvious what was going on. Part of me thinks that JoJo understands now that she was being played like a fiddle and being love-bombed to fuck, but just doesn't want to say it because she knows that she can't really say that publicly because it would be really bad for business. They have to maintain this sort of like actual friendship that they both have, like, oh no, we're definitely friends, we're the best of friends. But it wouldn't surprise me if deep down JoJo fucking hates Chris now, or the other way around, or maybe there's even a fucking mutual hatred for how they both see each other as the demise of their respective careers.
And we can get into your comments about like, I don't think I'm a lesbian anymore, and things like that, but
I knew coming on the Wild Files I was gonna get into it all. It's like, because I'm coming to the Wild Files, which is like hard pressing anyways, but then it's also with my best friend, so it's gonna be even worse.
We also just like want the tea.
Yeah, we also just want to know what's going on, and also Nick's like older brother vibes, like JoJo.
But I mean, it's, you know, it's like, it's not, you know, you can't go on a video and share your side of the story and speak your piece and then go, please don't keep your name out of my mouth.
And look,
keep my name out of your mouth. You know, it's like, okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of exactly what happened. So they said I broke up with them at the rap party. That's not entirely the story. The story, you know, goes, they had mentioned to production they did not want to come to the rap party. And I said, all good, I'm going to go to the rap party.
Were they invited?
Yeah, of course. But it's not their environment. That's so fine. It's so fine, like whatever. But I'm gonna go and I'm gonna have a great time and I want to meet all the crew and it's a big deal and everybody's going. And so they also had gotten the families hotels and the cast hotels because you have to kind of come down, and I'm already having all these crazy thoughts that I've been having in the house, and I need to formulate them. I need to talk to my mom. I need to be alone. I need to look at my phone. I need to see what's going on. I need to realize, what am I feeling? What are these thoughts? I'm not in a place to talk. So I'm in a place to have a fun, cute opening conversation, but I'm not in a place to actually talk yet.
She slipped it by there, which I think was very subtle, but she goes, I had to look at my phone.
I need to talk to my mom. I need to be alone. I need to look at my phone.
If we're looking at this in good faith, which I will try to do, she could very well mean I need to look at my phone, check the messages, message people who I wanted to talk to, you know, my mum, people in my life, my best friends, people like that, Kath even. But me personally, I don't know if you agree, if I had to message people or talk to people who I've not spoken to in 3 weeks, I would not describe that process as looking or checking on my phone. I would describe that process as catching up with people over the phone, right? I know we're getting very, like, pedantic and looking into semantics here, but I think that is a genuinely quite important distinction, because I don't know anybody who would describe catching up with people as looking at their phone. That seems like something you would say if you want to check the news on your phone or sort of look at public perception of the situation that you have just been in, right? She is checking her phone because she wants to know, what did people think about my relationship with Chris? What did they think about my role in Big Brother? Who did they side with? Who do they fucking hate? What did they think of Mickey Rourke? Did they side with me in that situation? Did they like how Chris treated me? Shit like that. And the way that the public sees her and sees her situation and sees the people around her, without doubt, was going to influence the way that she talked or acted going forward in that party, and the way that she spoke to Kath, her mother, the people around her. I think it would have been very different if the public perception or what she saw on her phone that day was a completely different reaction. I'm not saying that she would have stayed with Kath by any means, but I do think we would have got a different outcome here.
I mentioned to them, I said, look, I know you don't want to come to the after party, but I'm going to go, and then I'm going to go to my hotel. It's going to be 3 a.m. I'm going to go on my phone. So why don't you go to yours, and then I'll go to mine, and let's reconvene tomorrow morning. And that upset them, rightfully so. They wanted to be with me, but I knew I wasn't in a place for that. They didn't want to go to the rap party, but they wanted to come to the hotel, but I was like, I'm just not. So anyways, 27. Okay. So we separated, and they started driving to the hotel. I go to the rap party, and then about an hour into the rap party, I got one of the welfare team said, hey, at the time my partner said, I want to come now. I've changed my mind. Like, what's the mood? So I took his phone. I filmed a video of the party. I said, it's not really your scene, but if you would love to come, like, come. And then something else happened. I got told something else that they didn't want. And it kind of made me feel like, okay, this is very strange. Like, I really don't like this vibe right now.
It felt like a setup maybe a little bit?
Yeah. And so when they got to the party, they had these little, like, they were kind of like vanas for us. They were like little huts. And so we started to have a conversation, and I was like, just come in here for 10 minutes. Let's just have a chat before we go over there. And that conversation started immediate, and I was going to lead the talking, but then they kind of led the talking. And all I'm saying to every question they ask is, I don't know. 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 Are you this? I don't know. Are you that? I don't know.
So it's like
is it
one
this?
of those,
I don't know.
it's one of those classic conversations.
Are you happy
like,
in our relationship?
Yeah, but it's just like, hey, I don't want to have this conversation right now. And then like, but I want to ask you some questions. Yeah. And then they start having the conversation no one wants to have in this moment.
And then all of a
sudden you're having it.
And then all of a sudden we're having it. And all of a sudden, we're at the rap party for Big Brother. I'm getting cussed out. It was the security guard kept turning around to me being like, and I was like, you know what I mean? Like, because I understand where they're angry and where they're coming at me, but I also keep reiterating, like, I'm not in a place to talk. I was just with 13 people, down to 6, locked away for 20 days. I haven't spoken to anybody. I'm now in a room with 200 people. We're in this hut. It's outside. I haven't slept in 24 hours. I don't know what's going on.
Overstimulated. I need to be alone.
Like, and now I'm just like, it's just a whirlwind. Anyways, by the 16th time somebody asks you, are you happy? Do you want to end things? You're gonna just spew your guts. And I was honest. And I said, if you ask me tomorrow, I don't know my answer. If you ask me right now, my answer is yes. And then that that obviously was taken as yes.
I honestly can... Alright, so everything I'm about to say is under the jurisdiction of if what is being said here is true. And it sounds like a fine, realistic story from the surface, right? Who knows if this is exactly how it went down, but if we had to take her at face value here, I can understand both perspectives, because there are certain people in life who want to get shit resolved before they can't go to bed unless everything is resolved with their partner. There are some people, however, who are more along the lines of, let me sleep it off, let's rejuvenate, let's come back to normalcy, and we'll talk about it in the morning. I, personally, am someone who needs to get everything resolved, otherwise I will not be able to fucking sleep. My girlfriend, however, is the type of person who, let's just take a few nights off and we'll talk about it more in the morning. As you can imagine, it does cause a lot of conflict, relatively similar to the sort of conflict being described here. Obviously not that bad, but like, it causes a little bit of light sort of, I guess, disagreements. We don't have arguments, but we have disagreements and debates. Usually, I will say that I do end up biting the bullet and going to bed and talking about it the next day or whatever, because as much as my ego hates to admit it, she's usually fucking correct. So I think it would have been good for Kath if they just sort of went, you know what, I understand you're overstimulated right now, there's so much shit going on, you just come out of the Big Brother house, let's just leave it for a day or two and we'll talk properly when we're both back to normal. But then I also understand that Kath has just watched JoJo Siwa cheat on her publicly for 3 weeks on national fucking television, so I cannot blame Kath for wanting to get shit sorted, being really angry, and wanting to talk about it there and now. This is what I mean, I really can understand both sides here. That's what makes it so tough.
What was their expectation about like what this experience would be for you? And
you mean
like
prior to going in?
Prior to going in, and I get, well, you know, they probably watched it the whole time. But like, you know, a lot of the speculation around you and Chris was just like, again, just people like, at no time am I watching you and Chris and wondering like, if you're seriously having a thing with this guy, or if, you know, like I know who you are. You know, you know, it was all like the internet's having a buzz and the internet's
having a heyday. It's our bond is beautiful, but our bond is what you saw. You know what I mean? There's not anything that we did that you did not see. You know, you saw the extent of it. And so I think...
But the extent of it, the stuff that we saw, was enough for people to realistically and justifiably come to the conclusion that there was some romantic intentions behind the words and actions that were being displayed on camera, especially from Chris's side. He's calling you sexy. He's telling you to lick the chocolate off of his shorts. I mean, let's be real. What was he referencing? It was like, oh, imagine it wasn't chocolate. He's talking about fucking cum! He's talking about cum! I heard somewhere that he was talking about, like, shit. I'm sorry. That is a load of shit. Yes, I do believe her that the extent of what we saw is what actually went down, although there were some, like, unaired clips that they were very close in as well. But, like, if there was anything further than... If they just straight up fucked in front of everyone, Big Brother, the twats that they are, probably would have shown the entire thing. So, yeah, I do believe her in that. But that just doesn't make it any better. Like, the behavior that we were witnessing is not behavior that is okay when you are in a monogamous relationship. It just isn't.
People are always going to run with what they want to run with. And I think that's somewhere that I've always just kind of been okay with. You know what I mean?
Why do you think they came in with such a feeling of disconnect?
I don't know. I really don't know. And it's not my place to speak on behalf of them. I know from me, there should have been no like questioning, especially around the boundaries of our relationship.
So were you presented with doubts about your actions in the house with Chris?
While I was in the house?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, because I straight up said, what are your boundaries? And I had a few boundaries for them while we were in the house, and they actually did proceed to break those boundaries. I will say that. And that's something that it wasn't big enough for me to care about, but it was something that I'd specifically asked, like, hey, look, for the 20 days, just can it with a few conversations. And those conversations actually picked up more. They had in-person ones as well. And like that for me was like, okay, look, I'm ending things anyways. It's another reason. You know what I mean? It was another piece of pie on the plate.
That right there is really fucking interesting, because that is, again, textbook manipulation from Chris. Chris has been told by JoJo explicitly, do not do this. Do not say that. Let's not talk about this. These are where my boundaries are. And Chris, knowing that, very intentionally, obviously intentionally by the way, has broken those boundaries, knowing that she is not comfortable with it. That is not good behavior, right? That is dodgy. It's sleazy. And it further perpetuates the bad vibes that I had about this bloke. And with all that being said, it really doesn't surprise me. I also don't buy into the mentality of, yeah, he was breaking those boundaries, but I'm about to end the relationship anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Because the fact of the matter is, you're making your partner look like a twat. You're making them look like a fool, a prick, because everyone in that house is knowing, they now know that you are with someone who, in their mind, is allowing you to treat them so disrespectfully and, like, blatantly horrible. When you're so publicly flirting with somebody when you're in a relationship, it's disrespectful on so many levels, not only because you're cheating, but also because it makes them look weak and tiny and like apathetic.
No, I definitely never overthought anything with Chris. Yeah, regarding...
Like, why did Kath show up and start pressing you for these answers following this like experience? Like you would think they would have a little bit more empathy for, like, you're literally coming out of this mindfuck.
What kind of question is that? Kath has just watched her on live TV go, fuck the lesbian community. I am not a part of that anymore. I'm queer. My sexuality has changed. I'm gonna kiss up on this bloke, lick his fucking shorts, get really close to him and start touching his hips. I'm going to fucking sleep with him on multiple occasions and make the exclamation, the proclamation that my girlfriend does not give a fuck. Obviously, if Kath does in fact give a fuck and they're watching JoJo say that they don't give a fuck, then they're going to press her a little bit and be annoyed. This is a very silly question from, what's his name, Nick Vile, which I've just clocked, the Vile Files, right? It's good. I should make a podcast, the Dankyjabo Files. I should call my podcast.
You were asking for like a little bit of time.
I'll say this, it's really hard to speak on because we had a mutual agreement. Like, look, let's just cool it for a second. Like, we broke up for these reasons, and you know that. You know, Kath posted a video basically alluding to Chris and I are the reasons that we broke up. That's not the case. That is not the truth. And they know that and I know that. So they were going to, post their video again, but because they wanted to share their story, but say like, hey, I did give some misleading information. Like JoJo and I have talked a bit more. Not here's the truth, because I don't expect them to air out all the reasons why I did end things between us, because if they did, it would be a little crazy. But all good if they wanted to. But I don't think that's the right thing to do either. But following up that and them saying they were going to make that statement, I also was going on a morning show the next day with Chris, and we were going to shut the JoJo and Chris rumors down, and we were going to say we're friends. And I also was sure to say, like, look, life is life. You never know where life's going to take you, but I can tell you today, right now, Chris and I are friends. We have a great special bond, but we are friends.
Yeah, we did look at that interview last video, and that comment about, like, look, you never know where life's going to take you, to me, that was a dead giveaway that JoJo cares about Chris more than Chris cares about JoJo. Because when you're asked the question, oh, will you get into a relationship with this person in the future, and you genuinely have no romantic interest in them, you would shut that shit down pretty quickly. Like, nah, we're just friends. I think it'd be really weird if we were in a relationship, sort of thing. But when you leave it open, when you don't completely deny that you have romantic intentions, it just makes it very clear what is actually going on here, especially because Chris was so adamant that there was no romance, completely platonic, and all that bollocks, right? Bish bash bosh, real good nosh. Which once again is completely contrary to how he was leading her on and acting in the house, which is why I really don't appreciate it.
Only reason why I'm okay to briefly speak about them is because they reposted their video and gave no context, and then continued to let their friend, who actually, while I was in the house, did something pretty bad to them. Their friend has been going off on social media, trying to, spread the same misinformation, and it's gotten deeper. And so that's the only reason why I'm okay to speak.
So I think she's talking about Abby Chatfield there, who's a friend of Kath, a very public friend of Kath, or who's also huge on TikTok. We will be looking at Abby later on in this video and looking at what she's been saying about this whole situation, because yeah, it's pretty fucking mental. So stay tuned for that, folks.
I also don't want to speak about them because that was their request, was to kind of leave them out of it. And
again, which I respect, but it's like, it's hard because you don't get to do that, and then
you don't get to have it both ways. Like, you don't get to ask me for a business class flight home and then do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, when I already got to a plane ticket home. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I don't know. There's just a lot of
business class. Nick doesn't even put me in business class. You put your ex in business class?
No, I did not. I was straight up. I was like, look, you posted the video again. You didn't give any context. Like, I don't feel comfortable asking my team to do that right now. Like, it's a mess. And we had a long talk about it not being a mess anymore. And it's a mess. And I think that there's just so much misinformation out there that would not be the right thing to do right now. Like,
were you just as shocked as like the rest of us to see their video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely was. I was on the phone with my mom, and I saw it on Instagram first, and it was, cut off. So I was like, oh, the full version must be on TikTok. And then I saw the full 13-minute version, and I was like, oh, I'll be genuine, I did not watch
13 minutes is
13 minutes is
forever.
I did not watch it. I did not watch it.
That's a movie.
You didn't watch it. So everything you've been saying about there's so much context missing, there's a lot of misinformation, all of this chat that you've been giving about the video, and you haven't even watched it. So what is the truth here exactly? Are you just saying this because from hearsay, like have people told you things and you've just believed them without actually watching the video? Or have you watched the video and are now lying about not having watched the video? Either way, it's a bit strange, but like, I just don't understand why you would make such confident assertions about a video that you actually haven't watched.
I understand wanting to share your truth, and that is the exact thing that I told my ex. I said, look, if you would like to share what happened, if you would like to share how it happened, that's totally fine. It's your story. It's your life. Please do not lead to the false narrative that's already out there that we are now going to say, hey, look, guys, like, yes, we're very close. We have a beautiful bond. We're meant to be in each other's lives. But like, can it with these for a second? Like,
well, because it's like, well, one, it's not true or accurate. And it's just like, again, like, it's also just kind of going against your whole identity.
Well,
and then it's painting a narrative.
There's so many reasons why my breakup happened.
Yeah.
Christopher is not one of them. And I mean, look, I actually told this guy, I was like, maybe it'll be easier if he was. But, you know what I mean? Like, he is not one of them. So if you're going to share the story, share the story.
Well, that's kind of my point. It's just like that. It's not an accident, and there's an implication.
Yes.
The way they led with it to suggest it again, like this thing that's not real.
Yes.
I mean, your friendship is real.
Yeah, very.
But the romantic side of the speculation was just like, again, goes not only like not true, it goes against your identity, but it also like it paints this picture of like infidelity, kind of like, you know, that speculation of like, again, paints you as a villain, paints you as like.
That's what it was. It wasn't a painted picture. It was it was an actual picture taken on a digital camera with fucking no aperture. It was clear as hell. There was infidelity, and it was a villainous is like maybe a bit taking it too far, because it's like the connotation behind that word, but it was a bad thing to do. And you were being disloyal, and you were cheating. Like, that is what it was. And I know I keep saying it, but you cannot blame us for having the speculation when it was so obvious what was going on in there. We're being fucking gaslit in real time. We are all being gaslit into thinking that we're idiots and we don't understand that men and women can't be friends. The behavior displayed on the show is not the behavior between two platonic friends. It just isn't.
And leaning into like an international narrative.
Exactly.
And it's like,
that's where it's like, I understand Chris and I are very tight. We have this very beautiful bond, this very beautiful connection, but don't paint it out to look like I cheated on you with him, because I did not. And that is, I will nail my feet into the ground and I will stand on that ground.
I guess it depends on how fast and loose you play with the definition of cheating. I myself consider sleeping with somebody else that you seem to be attracted to, who is calling you sexy, who you are licking the shorts off of, who you are literally kissing in a hot tub, and sleeping with them. Yeah, I would consider that to be cheating. So I don't think that it is too outrageous for Kath to make the implication, which they didn't even straight up say, which I thought was actually quite generous of them, that you were cheating with her, or on her, with Chris. At the very least, you have to understand why people would come to that conclusion reasonably and not be angry at the fact that they are, because everything that has been put out there leads people to that conclusion. It's not even like an over-sensationalization like so many things on the internet. It is just what was happening. Unless maybe there are some dynamics about JoJo and Kath's relationship where maybe it's a bit more open than they made it seem, maybe they're a bit more promiscuous outside of their relationship than seen before, and they were both okay with that, and now Kath is making it seem as though they were purely monogamous, like sort of normal, traditional type relationship. I would understand why that might get on JoJo's nerves a bit, but we don't know about any of that, so I'm not going to assume as much.
Talk about your comments about not being a lesbian anymore. I mean, I think I understand the context, but like,
I don't know if what I said in the heat of the moment, did I say fuck being a lesbian? I don't remember saying that.
That's not my understanding. My understanding is like,
it doesn't matter if you don't remember saying it. It's on camera. You can watch it. Like, as much That's the worst defense ever. Imagine watching video of you doing something like a week ago and then going like, no, that can't, I don't remember saying that. That can't have been me. To be fair, I wouldn't put it past Big Brother to fucking AI voice that shit, but like, you said it. It's on camera. You can't deny it.
You just said, I'm paraphrasing, but like, you didn't feel like a lesbian fully encompassed, you know, your sexuality. And then it honestly seemed to motor based off the premise that at the time you were dating a non-binary person. So it kind of makes sense to say I'm queer, which is more inclusive.
I also was around somebody who's super queer.
And are we going insane? Are we going insane? Have I been transported into a fucking alternate dimension where the Big Brother house has no cameras or audio? The video's right there. How are you going like, I don't think you did say that. I'm paraphrasing, but I thought you just said that you weren't comfortable. No, she said it. She said, fuck the L, fuck the lesbian community. I'm part of the queue now. It's right there. She was caught in 1080 or 4K even. Her hand was caught in the bastard cookie jar and they're acting as though cookies never existed. Everything I said about JoJo being relatively authentic is being thrown away right now, because what is this? A way better defense, in my opinion, would have been like, you know what, it was in the heat of the moment, I forgot there were really cameras rolling, I was there for 3 weeks, like, yeah, of course I'm going to say some things that people don't agree with, I didn't mean it in that way, sorry if I offended anyone, but like, you know, I truly didn't mean it like that, I was just getting a little bit excited, talking to someone who I consider to be a bit of a pal, and yeah, said something a little bit offensive. Be a little bit honest, because I'm sure you didn't mean it fucking maliciously, it just came across bad because it was quite a strange thing to say.
I was looking at Danny, and Danny and I had loads of conversations about, you know, being queer and gender identity, and it was beautiful. And I come out of the house to see that, and I honestly, I'll be really honest, I see the lesbian community coming at me saying like, how dare you, whatever. First of all, let's clarify a couple of different things here. Sexuality is fluid. Gender identity are fluid. You can be one thing today and one thing tomorrow. People saying to me that I have never been a lesbian is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I fell in love with a female at age 17. And like that same female is in my life, and I have a very special place for her. Obviously, our relationship did not work out, but even right now, going through all this shit, she reached out to me today and was like, "You can always lean on me." And I was like, I genuinely, I know. Like, so to say that I was never a lesbian, it's people are searching for something.
She is right there. A lot of the discourse about her sort of changing sexualities, if you want to call it that, has been very unfair and disingenuous. She is allowed to come to the realization that she is not the sexuality that she thought she was beforehand. Like, you are totally allowed to do that, because like she said, better than I can, to be frank, it is fluid. It can change the next day if, you know, you realize something that you didn't know previously. That's fine. The issue is the surrounding context and the way she went about it and the perceived reasons as to why she realized that change was necessary. But the change itself is completely normal, fine, and should be encouraged. Not that not being a lesbian should be encouraged, but the idea that sexuality is fluid and that you are free to realize things about yourself that you didn't know previously, that should be encouraged.
Well, yeah, I mean, thanks for clearing that up. I mean,
the funniest thing got to clear up. It's so funny.
I know, it's just silly and funny and stupid, but at the same time, to your point, it is also your identity, and you've been at the forefront, you know, as a huge public figure who's a part of the community. You've obviously been a leader, you've been a spokesperson, you've been a voice, and I'm sure it must be met with some frustration on your part to just speak openly about your feelings, about your sexuality, and seemingly a safe environment.
Can I be so honest? Yeah. I could literally care less.
I couldn't care less. No, I could care less. Is that an American thing, or is that just a silly people thing that just can't be bothered to say an extra 2 letters in their fucking sentences? I can't talk to be. I referred to her as a fucking gal earlier on in this video, so I have no room to speak on fucking words. I'm willing to bet that's the first time JoJo Siwa has been referred to as a gal, by the way. So yeah, that's pretty much the extent of JoJo's sort of talk on that podcast about everything that we personally are interested in. There's some other shit on there, but, you know, the podcast is there if you're that interested and you want to go watch it. For now, though, I think we should move on to everything else that has happened since then. We'll start with Kath Ebb's response to the whole thing, which is a mere 12 seconds, so we'll give it a watch now. So obviously this is in reference to JoJo Siwa refusing to pay for her, like, what's it called, business? We call it first class here in the UK. I don't know why it's different over there. But yeah, this is pretty much all we've seen from Kath since that podcast came out, which makes sense. I feel like the both of them have come to this mutual agreement, or maybe even a legal agreement, that they will not talk about this any further going forward, which I think is the best course of action for both of them, right? The best thing to do for both JoJo and Kath would be to move on to hopefully bigger and better things. Now I'd like to look at a popular TikToker, Abby Chatfield's TikToks on this whole situation, who is also a very public and close friend of Kath Ebb's, who's sort of been commentating on everything going down as it happened, and it very clearly got to JoJo to an extent because she gave her a mention, just not by name, in the podcast we just watched. So I'm curious to see what Abby was saying. Fucking hell, this video is 10 minutes long. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to skim through this.
One camp has been, this is really fucked, poor Kath, Kath's getting cheated on, this is relationship ending, right? That is valid in its own way. Then there's another camp saying it's queer phobic, it's lesbian phobic to say that JoJo and Chris have feelings for each other because that's just how queer people interact with each other, and JoJo's just touchy-feely and there isn't any attraction. There have been another group saying that it is homophobic, talking about how Kath essentially should get over it because it was a 4-month-long relationship and it doesn't matter because that's kind of dismissing the validity of lesbian relationships, right? All of them have truth in reality, but in this particular situation there is a huge part that we're all missing, or you're all missing, and it's the public element of it.
Yeah, honestly, I think that point right there, I'm not sure what's going to happen the rest of this video, but that is bang on. That is the thing that makes this so different from many other cheating stories in the public eye, or just cheating drama in general between YouTubers, influencers, singers, whatever you want to call it, right? Is that the cheating, in this case, was so public and seen by so many people on such a popular reality television show. If there was a bit of flirty banter behind closed doors that we didn't see, that ended the relationship, and Kath went and made that video, I think I'd be a lot more on the JoJo Siwa side of things, right? I'd be a lot more on the side of like, well, you can't make this 13-minute video denouncing her and fucking going in and then ask her not to say anything back when this is only public because of you. You know, this is a 3-month-old relationship, you're a fully developed grown woman and she's 21 years old, still figuring out herself, and you're calling her the love of your life and this amazing person. It does seem a little bit love bomby, but the fact that the relationship between Chris and JoJo was so public, seen by millions of people, and they knew that what they were doing would be seen by that many people going into the house. That's what allows me to have more sympathy for Kath in this situation, because you can't be treating someone like that. It's insanely disrespectful. Obviously, JoJo flirting with someone in the way that she was in that house, behind closed doors, off camera, is still bad. But this is a lot worse. I think we can agree on that much.
Because she knows how reality TV works. She's aware that the media are covering it. That's another element. And she's aware that social media, on top of all this, is making it international. JoJo would be aware that Kath would be getting trolled from that behaviour. And that is something that I find abhorrent. There are two options there. Either JoJo is completely aware that she's creating this media storm and doesn't care enough about Kath to stop it and wait till they're out of the house, or to be uncomfortable in the house, to be uncomfortable in the house and then wait till you get out and be a bit lonely in the house, which sucks, but not be hurting your partner, actively hurting your partner.
I think that is slightly unfair and presumptuous to assume that she absolutely knew what she was doing and that she was doing all this with the knowledge, almost intending for Kath to get all these mean comments, trolling her about the whole thing. I think it's a lot more likely, personally, that she just didn't think about it that way and was trying to act authentic. She said herself that she tried to put boundaries up with Chris and that Chris was continuously breaking down those boundaries and she didn't resist as much as she maybe should have. I would waver more towards the side of she just didn't think about it that deeply and didn't know that Kath would get all this shit. I'm sure that if she did know what would come out of this situation, she wouldn't have been doing the things that she was doing on camera, because this has been a net negative for her career in terms of, PR. Reputation-wise, JoJo Siwa is at a very low point right now. She would not have done this if she knew it was coming. And yes, not thinking about how she would affect Kath is also a problem, but I think this characterization here is just a little unfair.
There are many videos about Kath and JoJo that have millions of views. There would be at least 10 million people on Earth that are aware of this. Imagine being cheated on, or imagine being perceived to be cheated on, okay, and you haven't made a statement, but all of your friends, all of your family, all of your colleagues, everyone who hates you, everyone who's met you at a cafe, everyone who's never met you, everyone that is aware of you is aware of this happening. That is a nightmare.
That is why I can really understand why Kath made it public, and it's why I don't necessarily critique her for making that 13-minute video, because they had to hold so much shit deep down in their heart, in their soul, in their chest, in their fucking vocal cords for that 3 weeks where I'm sure Kath wanted nothing more but to just spew out all of their emotions, talk openly about what's going on, how uncomfortable they are with how Chris and JoJo are acting, but they had to keep it together and hold strong for all that time. So when eventually they had a chat with JoJo, realized that it was all a lot realer than they thought, I understand why the sort of, I guess, the corks unscrewed and just fucking all the champagne went flying out and there were all these emotions and they couldn't quite articulate themselves in the best way possible and they said a bunch of shit for a 14-minute long video. I get it. Like I said, I really can understand both sides here.
If anyone's saying Kath is so immature for coming to social media and posting that video, like, no wonder they were dumped. You were all aware of it. It was already public. That's why you're all commenting on these videos.
She's kind of right here. Like, people were hounding Kath. You need to respond to the shit that's going on. What do you think about it? Please talk about it. What did JoJo Siwa say to you? And then Kath makes their response. And all of a sudden, you're so emotionally immature for doing this. I can't believe it. You're a fully grown woman. You have some respect here. You might be making this public. This didn't need to be public. So these same people who are begging for them to make it public are now complaining that it was made public. I see both sides, but the switch up is meant. And I don't blame them for making that video at all. I can critique some of the things that was said in the video about how JoJo Siwa was the love of your life and the most amazing girl or whatever after 3 months of dating, which when you consider the age gap as well, I do think is a strange and emotionally immature thing to say. But the existence of a 14-minute video in and of itself clearing the air is totally fine in my opinion.
And you were all putting words in their mouth, talking for them, going, Kath wouldn't care about this. Kath wouldn't care. Because they're open, they're like a free-spirited person. No, of course they care about seeing their girlfriend back-tickling someone and borderline making out with someone in bed, cuddling in bed. Yeah, of course they are.
To be fair, JoJo was saying that Kath wouldn't care about her getting her back tickled and all that bollocks or whatever, and people would assume in good faith that if anyone was to know Kath and what their boundaries were, it would be JoJo Siwa. So if JoJo's to say something about Kath's boundaries and there isn't any response from Kath, I think you can't really blame people for believing JoJo and thinking, oh, I guess Kath is okay with this, and they just have that sort of relationship. I personally didn't buy it, but I wouldn't, you know, think any less of someone for buying it.
I reckon a lot of people who are shipping JoJo and Chris are doing so because it plays into their preconceived ideas that a lesbian is only a lesbian until she meets the right man. So there's always weird religious comments about, like, divine intervention, being in her feminine.
I have not seen anybody on the fucking planet or the internet, which might as well be different places at this point, shipping JoJo Siwa and Chris Hughes. Then again, I am not involved in any communities or parts of the internet that think that lesbians are just people who haven't found the right man yet, so I guess that makes sense, and I wouldn't be shocked if those communities were shipping the two, because it plays into the predetermined stereotype that they have in their heads, which is obviously very idiotic and wrong, and you are a silly, silly individual to say the least if you believe something like that bullshit is true. I was getting comments in my last video from people who were very clearly in that community, and it's like, if you're somehow watching this far, go away.
People that are blaming JoJo, it's also like, that's a societal thing. Like, that's not up to her to prove this ideal wrong. It is up to her to not do it on fucking national TV while she's got a partner. That is up to her. But yeah, some of you are being weird as fuck.
This Abby lassie, I was prepared to come into this and think, like, you know what? Abby is obviously Kath's close friend. There's going to be a lot of bias here. Take it with a grain of salt. Fucking speaking facts, and I really appreciate and respect this. Like, of all people involved in this situation, this lassie right here is saying the most things that I personally agree with, which means that she is the most correct, because I agree with her. I think all in all, the whole experience was definitely JoJo questioning things, which is totally fine and normal. You're 21 years old, questioning your sexuality, finding out who you are is a very normal, honorable thing to do. It's just such a shame that it all happened on international television and at Kath's expense. That is the real issue here. That's what I've been saying this whole time. At the very core of what happened, nothing bad went on, right? It's just a young girl figuring things out about herself. The only issue is that it unfortunately came at somebody else's expense, whether that be intentional or not. But whether it is intentional or not, it was still a bad thing on JoJo's part, whether that be intentional or just ignorance.
When you love someone, you can love someone from a platonic friendship.
Fuck off. I've just clicked on this fucking link and it just... I wasn't expecting this. Even though this is a video about JoJo, for some reason my putrid mind wasn't expecting to see Chris Hughes. I guess we need to bite the fucking bullet and listen to this wanker. Look at him with his fucking arm around her as well. I don't like this guy, man.
When you love someone, you can love someone from a platonic friendship way, and it doesn't have to be like, oh my god, I love you. But I love the fact that we had each other in there, and that made our life easier.
Just shut up, you mug. I hate this shit. People who, oh, I love you, but I don't mean it, not like that. No, not like that. No, I would never say it like that unless, but not, definitely not. Like, I just love you as a friend. You know exactly what you're doing, you tosser. Get over yourself. JoJo also went on the Useless Hotline podcast where we can see some of the excuses that were made in reference to all the behaviors that were being seen on Big Brother. This podcast in particular is more about, you know, other aspects of JoJo's life, but obviously there is still some mention of the relationship with Chris, and these ones are pretty interesting to say the least.
Did you experience that? Did you see that? Or did you see it all as playful banter?
I think all playful banter. Yeah, I really do. We have a great banter, and it was fairly immediate. Like, it just like, it's like two peas in a pod. Like, it just clicks.
It was like the third night. He's like stroking your lower back, like
giving me back scratches. Who would pass? I would take back scratches from a stranger off the street. At least we knew each other for 3 days.
I'm not too sure about that defense right there. She's no Phoenix Wright. She's no Saul Goodman. She's more like SpongeBob in that one episode where Plankton sues Mr. Krabs for having him slip over in the Krusty Krab. I don't know, man. Like, you just can tell me if I'm wrong once again, but if someone offered to lightly scratch and caress your back whilst you were in a relationship and they were someone who was, you know, flirting with you this whole time, I'm pretty sure the natural response would be to go, sorry, mate, I'm in a relationship. Also, we don't know each other. Why the fuck are you touching me like this? This is the thing, though. Like, if she wasn't in a relationship with Kath, it would be totally fine. It's just the fact that it was so public. The infidelity was so public. I guess, once again, it depends on your definition of infidelity, but in my opinion, it's cheating. So that's the most popular clip by far from this podcast in particular. The rest of it isn't too interesting, or, well, it's not that it's not interesting, but there isn't much about everything that we're talking about in this video. But again, if you're interested in JoJo Siwa or just want to know more about it, then the podcast is there for you to watch. I actually edited for that bloke on the right, George Clarkey, a few videos in the past. There was one Love Island video in particular that I edited, but this was back when I had like fuck all money. I had one day to do it, and I was working on like the shitty wee MacBook, and my internet went down at the time, so every time I clicked on something on Premiere Pro, there'd be like a 20-second lag. It was hellish. I've also just come leaps and bounds as an editor since then. Like, I wasn't as good back then, and the edit was so bad, bro. If George Clarkey is somehow watching this, mate, I'm so sorry about that edit. Although I will say, I don't think I actually got paid for it, because I didn't want to get paid for it. I felt that bad. Like, I just straight up did not follow up or ask for payment at all, because I felt that guilty. There's been some other stuff that we missed in the last video that a lot of you have asked me to cover, which is this Tangled audition more than anything. I think JoJo Siwa auditioned for the role of Rapunzel in the live-action Tangled film that's coming out, which I'm sure is going to be fucking awful and another straight-up sin to humanity, because all of these Disney remakes genuinely make me want to die more than anything else on the planet. I despise them, like, with an actual passion.
At a certain point, you have to live your own life, not just please your mother.
Is that how you became a thief? Is your mother proud of that?
My mother died when I was young.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who took care of you?
I took care of myself. That's how I became a thief. Speaking of, the snuggly duckling with horses out front, as I suspected.
Oh my gosh, horses! Look, Pascal!
Yes, they're horses.
Are we gonna ride them?
That's the plan.
Who do they belong to?
I don't know.
How are we gonna pay for them?
I'm not gonna pay for them.
Wait. You're gonna steal them?
Okay, look, let's be real here. Pretty much any audition tape, I would implore you to sit down right now and try to act out a scene and record yourself doing it and watch it back. It don't matter how good of an actor you are, it's always going to look slightly cringe. Fucking Anna Gunn in Breaking Bad, when she was doing that heart-wrenching scene where Walter just had to cut myself off there because I realized that a lot of people still haven't seen the show, which is insane to me. But like, if I show you this scene just outside the context of the show, it looks cringe because it's not shot correctly. It's like it doesn't look right.
Please! Oh God, please!
But in reality, when you actually watch the show, it looks amazing, and she's an amazing actor, right? So if we look at this audition tape realistically, it's actually okay. Like, it's fine. There's nothing really that wrong with it. It's not great. I'll give you that. It's not amazing. But like, I don't envy her, but this was when her mother was running the account whilst she was in the Big Brother house, and I guess her mum was just trying to find content to put out, and there wasn't enough videos of JoJo dancing, so she just decided to put this out. She deleted it right after, but obviously that did not stop the internet, because something like this is going to be saved. Like, it's bound to be. It's just inevitable. But it's not that offensive in my opinion. It's fine. I don't think JoJo particularly fits the character very well, but this video is fine. I'm sure a lot of you were expecting me to just fucking rip into this audition tape, but I'll be real, it's fine. It's not too bad. There was also this video, which I just thought was fucking insane.
I like cashews, not in a mouth like cashew.
You can keep talking that talk, but I'ma keep walking my walk.
And finally, before we end this video, I'd like to have a wee look at what the other contestants of Big Brother thought about their relationship after leaving the house. Starting with everybody's favourite Scouser, the lad who I didn't know the name of in my last video, Danny Beard. Everyone made sure to correctly, they're not a Scouse lad, but they're Danny Beard. And they're a drag queen, as far as I can tell, which makes a lot of sense, because drag queens just want to see the world smile. They're like what YouTubers used to be, right? People who just want to entertain people, make them laugh. I know that might be an overly positive generalization. I'm sure there are some drag queens that are absolute twats, but most who I've met have been very, very kind.
What did you make of all of that?
You know, it's not my place to speak on Lorraine. PR's in the corner like, great answer, Danny. It wasn't my, it's not my place to speak on.
No.
As long as they're happy and as long as nobody else is being hurt, good for them.
Good for them. This is JoJo and Chris.
And I think it's purely platonic. I think they've grown a beautiful relationship. And I often think people get so obsessed with other people's business. Like, Big Brother's an entertainment show. Let them have a bit of fun. Like, it doesn't have to be deep.
It all sounds so simple when Danny Beard says it, and I agree with him. It's just a shame, and the bit where I disagree, and the bit that I don't think that they're considering, is the same thing that we've been bringing up constantly this video, and that's that Kath is involved, and that Kath is absolutely collateral damage here when everything's taken into account. Yes, people do tend to be overly obsessed with other people's relationships. Yes, it might have been purely platonic, but there was absolutely flirting, and there were absolutely actions that should be considered cheating, in my opinion, that damaged Kath's emotional state, reputation, the way that they were treated through comments and such. It's not a simple case of everyone just needs to calm their tits.
Are they having a relationship?
From what I saw, because I slept at that side of the bedroom in the house.
What do you mean, that side?
Right, okay, so
The opposite side.
Yeah. So there was me, JoJo, Chris. So I slept next to
with
JoJo.
them. Yeah.
I slept next to JoJo and then Chrissy. And from what I saw, they were just the best of friends in the house. So he's like a little bit of a puppy dog, is Chris. He needs...
company.
He needs company.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that shit so much. Nothing against that bloke. I'm sure he's nice or whatever, but he's just a bit of a puppy dog. There's nothing wrong with the way they were acting. Like the fuck. He's fucking Chris Hughes. I said this in my last video. This fucking male manipulator, fucking Smiths fan, Radiohead fan, reads feminist literature, is also 6'2", mega muscular, and knocks people out and wants to end period pain. This whole fucking type shtick that he has going on, and then the puppy dog thing is exactly what he wants you to think. He's like, he's trying really hard to be like this golden retriever energy type boy that seems to be like a huge fad on social media right now. But when you're not that type of person and you try to act that way, it's very obvious to everyone else that you are merely acting, you are not that type of bloke, and you are extremely manipulative, or at least trying to be. It's probably why he targeted JoJo Siwa alongside her being so famous, is because she's so young and so easily manipulated. Like, if Chris Hughes was acting this way with one of the women that I was around growing up with, I feel as though they would have slapped him in the face and told him to get the fuck immediately. Like, it would not even take 2 sentences for them to realize the type of bloke he is.
Obviously, when you're inside the house, you have no idea how it's being perceived, how you know, the press are kind of picking up on certain stories. I kind of gathered that maybe they would pick up on Chris and JoJo, but just because every time they got into bed together, all the cameras went, you know.
God, so they were acting that way even though they fully knew that, because if he noticed the cameras were on them, there's no way they didn't notice the cameras were on them. That means they were almost fucking acting, playing up, posing for the bastard cameras. For me personally, having 50 fucking cameras in my face, that would be the last thing that I would want to do, is get flirted on by some weird bloke, especially when I'm in a relationship. Like, at that point, it's on you for being a silly tosser.
I learned a lot about myself, and I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone, and that's exactly what I did.
And look, one of the big questions, obviously, is...
What the fuck is this background footage? What is this show? What the fuck is this show? This show is like just some weird producer's kink fest. And they probably have a piss kink, hence the fucking cat pissing in the litter tray. They probably have a furry kink, hence the cat dressing up to begin with. They probably have a fucking age play kink, hence this weird bullshit. And fuck it, they probably have a cheating kink as well. I feel like they went around the boardroom and just went like, what's your kink? What's your kink? What's your kink? We'll find a way to integrate it in the Big Brother house. This is fucking outrageous. Or maybe it's just one person with a whole host of like the least vanilla person on the fucking planet has just done everything themselves and is having the biggest wank as he's watching the show. It's a good thing we're nearing the end of the video, because not a lot of you are going to see this part. It's getting unhinged.
Well, all I see is that they're really good friends.
There's so obviously like some pre-prepared PR response that they all had to agree on immediately after leaving the Big Brother house. When JoJo Siwa checked her phone, as she mentioned earlier, she probably called a meeting between everyone and went like, all right guys, let's figure this out. Talk with Chris or whatever. Here is the story that we're going with. Say this if you're questioned on it, which inevitably you will be. And if we all just keep our story straight, we'll be okay and we can live another day.
And some people like have that physical touch as just a normal thing, and sometimes like a man and a woman can be friends without it being anything more.
I hate those people, by the way. I hate people who who act as though they're just these like sexually in touch beings who just love physical touch and don't mean anything by it. Especially, I don't give a fuck about double standards actually, especially when they're straight men. Because I can't help but see it as an excuse to just touch up women that you're attracted to. It's a shoddy excuse at that. Oh no, I'm just a naturally flirty or touchy person. Fuck off. Stop touching women, mate. Stop touching people in general, right? Just fucking leave it out. Especially when you've just met them and have no idea where their boundaries are. You can't just you can't treat people like that, in my opinion. It's weird, it's creepy. Get a grip. I think I've summed up all my thoughts pretty well on this video, so you know where I stand on this. Be sure to tell me if you disagree with anything I've said in the comments below. We did say a lot of things, so there's bound to be something that you disagree with me on or want to challenge me on, and that is totally fine, right? That happened in the last video, and because of it, I changed my opinion on Kath a little bit, so I'm always open to it. But with that being said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye.